Chitoka kamachi hakso bishan. It wili chintapahan lalika. I wetisa haklocha nanaka. Chemasi halika yetama. Klaistana wetisamihin saski.
It all starts back. I was working in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My aunt in California said, "Hey, you need to go by and see your Aunt Irene." That was my grandfather's sister. And I said, "She's still alive?" She says, "Yeah, she lives in Sperry. That's just a little bit north of Tulsa." I said, "Okay." So long story short, I called her and went and visited her. And she asked me, she goes, "Son, you got your Indian card?" And I was like, "So that's true?" She goes, "Son, you didn't know that you're Choctaw?" I'm like, "No." How exciting. She went down and told all about the history of the family. Well, she told me how to get my card, and that got me real excited about doing that. And then I found out, since I live 12 miles from the National Archives, I could go there and find all the information and pull these packets and get the roll and all that. And I did that. And every piece of paper that I could get my hands on, I made copies of everything. And then I got all the documentation from the Fort Smith archives, from the Fort Smith, from the court cases. So I found a lot of stuff in there too. And then corresponding to a lot of I grew up in California, a lot of my relatives out there, and everyone was pretty excited about this. So we found out a lot of information about our people being buried at Skullyville Cemetery. I knew we had people at the Garland Cemetery and the Tomahawk Cemetery, but I didn't know about the Skullyville. And then I found out that Ishkili means money in the Choctaw language. It's where they got their appropriations for their, their allotment payments. And so that's how it got its name. So my aunt and uncle came out from California, and we all went to those cemeteries, and we went to the Skullyville, and it's very emotional. Found our great grandmother that was on the Trail of Tears. She was on Trail of Tears when she was 10 years old. She came from the Leaf River area of Mississippi. And so we all did that. And at the same time, we went all over the place. We stayed at Podo at the Kerr Conference Center. And then we went every day, we would go to a Labor Day festival at Tuscaloosa. And we did that. And so that's how it all kind of started out. That's how I started out. And then I started doing the genealogy.
So that was like early on, you had heard about this cemetery and actually visited it back in the day.
Yeah. And it's pretty amazing if you think about, my grandmother was 10 years old. One brother was 8 and one brother was 5. And it took on average 3 months to get, some came in at Fort Towson, some came around Fort Smith. But they had to walk through swamps. There were snakes, there was malaria, there was, you name it. And then they were just treated just terribly. And then the oldest son would have the bone bundles. And then after a while, wasn't able to carry the bones of his dead and of the ancestors anymore. And so he had to leave them by the side of the road, which is really against the culture.
There were just so many who had died.
Yeah, it was horrible. And then at bayonet point, they would leave them. They'd stick a bayonet on the end of a gun on them, get moving. So I just couldn't even imagine, walking for 3.5 months to go to somewhere you don't even know where you're going.
So, and to leave behind your people.
So I had been there quite a few times to Skullyville Cemetery, probably 6 or 7 times, because my my people, like I said, they were from my grandmother's allotment land was at Pacola. And then they lived in LaFleur County and Haskell County. All the side of the family, which would be the Merrimans, the Gregorys, the Roses, the Allens, they all over, and the Robertsons too, around Keota, Stigler. Yeah, Judy Allen's maiden name was Krebs, and in 1920 and 1922, my great grandfather was a sheriff of Krebs, and he was an Allen. And then his daughter, Mary Margaret Allen, married my grandfather Rose, Papa Rose, I called him, and kind of neat. Carlisle Norman Rose, and he's buried at the old Garland Cemetery.
Now the Garland Cemetery, where is it located?
Well, there's actually two. There's a Samuel Garland's that's down by Broken Bow. I think it's in Pushmataha County, but this one is in Haskell County, just north of Stigler. There's no town or the only thing that's left there is a cemetery. But there was land donated by my great-grandfather, Carlisle Norman Rose. He donated land for a school to be built, and they did. And then it was supposed to go back to the family after there wasn't a school anymore, but it never happened. I don't know what happened with all that.
So do you remember your first impression the first time you went to the cemetery? You know, I'm sure the awareness that, you know, these people, first of all, these are my relatives, but these relatives and what they went through.
That's exactly. I thought I would be at their graves, and I realized now when I was there, June the 4th was the last time I was there, and I counted, and I have 12 ancestors buried there, you know. And I was like, wow, and I wonder about what their voices sounded like, what they did, every day, they had no air conditioning, they have no electricity, you know, they worked their rear ends off. There was a lot of work involved with just surviving. You had to rely on the weather for your food. Just in my one of my grandfathers at Skullyville, he was the only man to have a wheat thrasher, and he rented out his services to thrash people's wheat for him, so he didn't have to cut it by hand. His name was William P. Merriman. He's buried there also. But the whole thing about me going to the cemetery was about 5 months ago. Chief Batten had posted on Facebook. He had went to a service. Someone had passed, and he went to a funeral in Spiro, and he just said, you know, since I'm here, I think I'm going to go out to the Skullyville Cemetery, just a few miles. And then he took pictures of the monument, of the David McCurtain Hartshorn monument. He took a picture of the front and the back of it. He said, I love this monument. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love that monument too. It means a lot to me. What it says on the back. I said, boy, it really needs to be cleaned up. And so that's when I was like, did a lot of research on YouTube and found out how they took care of the headstones at Arlington National Cemetery. They've done over 3 million of them, and I'm going to call. Excuse me. And there's Chief Batten going back and forth. He said, well, Mike, see if we can do it ourselves. You know, because I wasn't sure if there's anything in the budget or anything. And then I realized after watching a lot of videos that I can do it. And then and I told Chief Batten what I found out. And he said, yes, sir. You go ahead and do it. And I said, well, thank you. I'll do the best job I can. And he pretty much said, I know you will. And so pretty good of him to do that for me. So I went out there, I ordered all the stuff, and with great honor and respect. And it actually happened. I went on Thursday because it was Memorial Day weekend. So I thought, you know, I go Thursday and Friday and get it done before people might come out there. And then on that Friday, a group of people from McAllister came out with American flags, and they were putting it on veterans' graves. And I'm like, man, what an honor for this at the same time that I am here. You know, I thought, man, so appropriate. So So I worked on it. I think altogether, just you have to be very careful. You can't use any bleach. You can't use a power washer. You have to use natural things to get rid of the lichen and the moss and, just grunge that's on there. So I think altogether it took me probably 6 hours total. But I was like, some people might say, man, that's a long time. Why would you want it to take so long? I'm like, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. To me, if they can walk for 3.5 months to get here to Oklahoma, I can darn sure show my respect. So that's what I did. And then my cousin Jerry came by and I gave him a bottle of that D2. I said, Jerry, why don't you go down there and spray our ancestors' headstones, which he was more than ready to do. He asked me if he said, Mike, can I help you with it? It's such a big monument, it's 5 foot tall or so. I'm like, no, cousin, this is something I want to do. I said, you can go find you one and do it, but this one's the one I'm showing respect for. I said, but thank you, And so,
You told me something interesting that David, the one who wrote what is on the monument, in our own view, we usually think of David as a man.
Absolutely.
And this is a good story.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'm at this monument, and David had given this monument, was doing a tribute to her family and friends. And so I'm looking down here, and there's David McCurtain Hartshorn monument, and it says mother. I'm like, makes no sense. I look over here, it says son. So I was like, I Googled it, and David McCurtain Hartshorn was a woman. So I was like, wow, this is really awesome. In a time period where women, didn't have too much say so in a lot of things, she was like a pioneer, to do this. I'm like, man. And then even thinking about having the memorial made, and then the stonemason going, is she really going to have the money for this, or do I want to bother with this woman, So it just really, she was very compassionate. And then it just dawned on me, that if we could get everyone or anybody that's still alive or volunteers to go out to that beautiful cemetery at Skullyville and take a little time and figure out the best way that they tell you to use the D2, and don't deviate from it. Just take your time, relax. It's not no race, but if people could go out there and do this, then we could do the whole cemetery. This might start a spark where people will take care of all their ancestors' graves. It's very meaningful for me. Very, very meaningful for me. And a lot of other people too. Native and non-native alike. So
I don't know if you can see this from where you're sitting, but if we did decide to publish this video, can you read that, what David put on the monument?
this is a tribute to the natives of many tribes of this hemisphere. We knew God and knew he was the creator of all creation. Our blessed Father, saith the Lord, I will put my laws in their mind and write them in their hearts. We knew God's laws and kept God's commandments. We were never savages, cruel, brutal, ferocious barbarians. We knew the truth. We lived in order of decency, peace, and freedom until the foreigners invaded our country. And it's signed David McCurtain Hartshorn. Kind of tough,
Yeah.
She was definitely speaking from her heart.
Yeah. When she had it done,
Yes.
that it was probably very meaningful then, but then it got, over time, it just got covered up. I feel like it's like these words got uncovered.
There's right now, if you go to the Skullyville Cemetery, it is the brightest headstone in the whole place. It looks like someone was just put the rest there, you know.
So do we know anything about how the cemetery was, like the location was chosen, or what groupings, like when you think about when people came to Oklahoma, did they start off with just one cemetery, or was it based on where people were living, their land allotments?
I believe it's the areas they're living, because you know Oklahoma has a ton of little cemeteries, right?
Yes.
And most of them are family. Like I said, I got 12 of my family members buried there.
Mhm.
And then there's a lot of LaFleurs and Colonel Tandy Walker, the chief of the Chickasaw Nations, buried there. And he was a business partner of my great grandfather, you know.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
okay.
And I found that out through genealogy, of course. But at one time, Skullyville had a population of 4,000 people. I know, it's just hard to believe because there's nothing there at all except for the cemetery. There was Port Coffee was there, and New Hope Academy for Girls was there, but that's all gone. But it was a thriving community at one time.
And was New Hope a tribally run school, or was it part of the government?
I think it was a little of both, but also the Presbyterians, I believe, might have been Methodist, or that they had a church there. I think people were treated pretty well there. I don't think they had to do away with their languages or anything. Or they didn't have, so they couldn't speak their language. But the Choctaw Nation was starting to acquire land, and they were starting to put up money fundings for the children, because they knew that eventually everyone's gonna have to learn English,
Mhm.
and have more modern ways.
I've talked about, you were talking about the person who's responsible for carrying the bone bundles. And we've had some talks about this, the bone pickers.
Yes.
And do you think it's okay to share what you know about that on video, or what you've read at least?
Well, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's very few people have been documented to doing such a thing, But what it amounted to was whenever the warriors' eyesight got bad and they couldn't hunt anymore, and whenever the people would die, they would. I can't remember. I think it's called a chantel house, like a. But they were prepared. They would have these. I think they're called channel, something like that. But and the Seminoles do it too. Chickasaw, a lot of the Southeastern tribes do it, and they build these little houses. It's a grave, and they would put these boxes in there, and they would put the bones of their ancestors in there, and they would wash all the bones before. The bone pickers would let their fingernails grow real long, but they wouldn't just take them apart to start with. They would wrap them up in skins, and sometimes even the old ways in scaffolding. But they would wait for the elements, animals, bugs, whatever, to do their deal for about 8-9 months, maybe a year. And then they would take it and build a little fire, and they clean the bones and burn what was left of the flesh and things in the fire. And they would they would clean the bones and the skull. They put red ochre on the bones and all stuff, and they put them in wooden boxes with a key in it. They put the bones in there, they lock the key, and they put them in these little bone houses. I think they're called channel. So, and then the strange part to me was, after they were full, they would take dirt and bury them.
Oh,
And I don't know why.
okay.
But then they had a deal about the children. If they had a child that died under a year old, they would pull up the boards of their house and bury the baby on the front porch. No one, as a matter of fact, Tandy Walker, I read an old book that I had that said about something that his daughter had a child that died, and they buried it underneath the floorboards there at Skullyville.
Okay. What's your feeling about the reason for that? Do you just as
Well, sometimes before things become, life is stages and phases. In certain areas of history, certain people did certain ceremonial rituals. And then as time went on, they didn't do that so much anymore. They did something differently. But back in that time period, I believe that they kept the babies there so the spirit of the child would be by the mother, and the mother would feel closer together until the baby would go on to where it was going. But I know that people like brothers and sisters and moms and dad, adults, when they died, they never spoke their name again. They would always say, the father of this person or the aunt of this person. They wouldn't speak their name because sometimes they were afraid. Well, some superstitions, and so they'd say, if we say their name, they might think we're going to be calling them back, and we don't know what was decided by the Great Spirit in the other world. So sometimes you might bring something back that you shouldn't be bringing back. So that's why they never did call them by their name.
When you approached Chief Batten, I know it probably wasn't a very long conversation, but it was a significant conversation to allow you, to touch something that's so historic and so sentimental, to every family that's in that cemetery.
Yeah, at the time, I wasn't thinking of the families. I was just thinking showing respect to David McCurtain Hartshorn. That was mine, to show respect to her, what she did. But yeah, I had emails going back and forth. I do research and stuff. I'm like, hey, this is what I found out. What do you think? I probably had back and forth, Chief Batten and myself, probably 10 emails.
Wow.
Before he decided.
So he really thought this over, and
yeah, because
both of you did.
we both love this memorial.
Right.
He mentioned it in the past, and I saw it. And then my cousin that came out from California, Brad Thomas, 2 years ago, and we were at the Skullyville Cemetery, and he said, "Hey, Mike, check this out." I said, "Yeah, I know, I love it, don't you?" And he goes, "Yeah, this is great." And so my family in California just really are ecstatic about it because it turned out really well. I think because like I said, that happened 2 days before Memorial Day. And then the next week, I just happened to go back with my wife. We were going to go to Pocoshi and to see some relatives. And I said, before I left, I sprayed it down again. And they say with the elements that it eats stuff that are natural and
Yes,
without messing with the stone. But anything that's living, moss and grass and lichen, that sort of thing, microbes, it kills all that up, and it can last up to 5 years.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
this will keep doing its
Yeah.
thing.
So and it said the wind, the sun, and the rain will continue to clean it. So I went back the following week, and my gosh, my wife was like, "This looks so much better in person." I said, "Well, it must have continued to work."
Right.
So I'm very proud of it.
I think the picture I saw looks really good, and you'll get to see the picture on this video. We'll put it in your question about David McCurtain. So was this monument by her grave, or was it a monument where she was asked to do this monument? Do you know anything about that?
No, her grave is right
Her
there.
grave there. So this is a quote that she
Yes.
had, and then they memorialized
The
it.
hartshorns are in there, and then it's in a beautiful iron gate surrounds these people that are buried there. And then outside of there is Answorths. Now the Answorths were early settlers, and they had a general store, and Oak Lodge was just a little suburb of Skullyville, I guess. And some of my kinfolks are really good friends with the Answorths to this day. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I got some pictures of the Answorths and stuff. But
so were they kind of like, in the old days they would call them, a person who lived in Chickasaw territory or Choctaw territory, before it became what we now know as Oklahoma, they would do it by the territory of the tribe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
the Choctaw Nation, the Chickasaw Nation,
Right.
the nation.
Right.
So,
yeah. That's so cool. Is there another monument there that you wish you could have time to work on? Was there other ones that
Well, what I do want to go back and do her monument, to do her headstone. I really need to do that out of respect. I just at that particular time I kind of kicked myself. I should have stayed there another day. Just got another hotel night and just done hers.
And are all the materials very similar? The headstones and the
Some are limestone, some are just marl, some are just rocks, sandstone rocks that no one ever came back. We don't. Everyone has reasons why they didn't come back,
Right.
and sometimes they couldn't afford to, or sometimes they moved on somewhere else. But this particular monument is marble, and I didn't know that until I started cleaning, and I saw the streaks running through it. And my cousin Jerry Rose confirmed it. I asked him, he didn't say anything. I said, "Cousin, what's that made out of?" He goes, I said, "Michael, that's marble." I said, "That's what I thought." So it'll last a lot longer than sandstone and things like that, you know. But I'd like to go back. My cousin Jerry, I'm gonna send him some of that D2, and he wants to go back and do our ancestors, and actually clean them right then instead of waiting.
Yes.
And but he's going to do that for me, or for him, or for us, for everyone.
Is Skullyville Cemetery on any kind of Oklahoma historical map site? What do you call it? Designated historical?
I haven't ever seen that. It is the National Cemetery of the Choctaw Nation. I know that. Well, years ago, long time ago, I don't know exactly how many years. I'm going to say 30 years, but I might be wrong. It belonged to the Oklahoma Historical Society. I just learned this recently. And my cousin, by marriage, is Judy Allen, who you know. And Judy reached out to the Oklahoma Historical Society and said, "Hey," said, "we're the Choctaw Nation and we want this cemetery." I'm like, "Well, we'll sell it to you." Well, that's way before Choctaw Nation accumulated a lot of wealth or anything. They just started getting by, really. And then it just started bingo, I think. I mean, it's been a long time ago. And Judy told him, "Well, we can't afford that right now." And then the man from the Oklahoma Historical Society, to my understanding, he said, "Well, what are you going to do with it?" I says, "Well, we want to clean it up inside and take care of it. We want to mow it and weed eat it and take care of the headstones, make sure they're broken. Maybe we can repair something or get it organized. And we want to put a nice fence around it." He said, "Well, I missed that part. They said that they wanted $15,000, and this was a long time ago." And Judy told him that we can't afford that. And he said, "You gonna put a fence around it?" I said, "Yeah." "You gonna do this? You gonna do that?" "Yes, we're gonna take care of it. It's ours. It's our cemetery." And they sold it to him for $1. That's how the Choctaw Nation got it. And kudos to my cousin.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Official
It makes it
transaction.
legal. Yeah.
That is a great historical story. It's a story that I think we do need to publish this video, as we're looking for first person accounts for the Grand Prairie Independent School District. I'll do a plug on this video. So about 40 elders from the American Indian and Indigenous groups in Dallas-Fort Worth got together in 2020 and decided it was time to write a high school course for Texas social history on American Indian and Native issues, right?
Awesome.
And so I think it was the week before COVID, a national emergency or whatever was put in place. And so we had met in person, and then the next meeting went straight to Zoom. And so for 3.5 years, we have worked on this amazing American Indian / Native Studies, that's the name of it, high school course for 11th and 12th graders. Challenges for teachers, or what they call a TEAC, a teaching educational knowledge skill, is to use first person accounts to get their information. And so your video would be a chance for them to hear directly from someone about their descendants and the story of Skullyville Cemetery. I think that the timing's perfect, because we were just talking about it this week, like, how do you get those stories? Do you have to, we have to share them. We have to start sharing them.
And the younger generation needs to know that it's gonna be their responsibility to take care of their ancestors.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so what we can do is we can take what we do for the Choctaw Nation here with Chief Batman's permission, we could plug them in at the pictures, still pictures at the end of this video, so people know what we were even talking about,
Oh, okay.
so that'd be cool.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
So good. Okay, so it is an act of love.
I think so.
This whole cleaning up the
I
monument.
agree with that 100%.
Kiyok mano salahi banoski. Tali holy somicha nanasi. Yak nilopa anshayo mikano. Isamak bano chia nilawa. Klaistak bano honsaba hanashki. Klaistana weti samihin sashki. Kiyok mano salahi banoshki. Klaistana weti sami hinsashki. Kiyok mano salahi banoshki. Chihowa nanpin haloka. Lawakatabi liyashki. Piona hoshoyanakma. Achakat anman hanyashki. Onahin limo yomaka. It's pinhalofi inashki. Onahin lifi chakchito. Mi maconchia mi hoki. Ni nakilafo hahiyan. Ik bit pinhin ma tokoki. Pinosik ma achok malit. Pia pisahan chihoki. Chitoka kamachi hakso bishan. It willy chin tapahan lalika. I wetisa haklocha nanaka. Chemasi halika yetama. Klaistana wetisami sashki.